Many of the comments in my previous video is nothing short of plain racism. I wonder how so many of these comments got through TikTok's censorship algorithm, some of which stayed on for days before being taken down, either voluntarily or by TikTok, I'm not sure, with many more hidden in my pending approval list you can see here. Truth be told, the arrogance with which some commenters display worries me. While this ethnocentrism is seen in Malaysian commenters of all races, I will concentrate on Sinocentrism in this video, or else this post will turn into a video thesis. Also because it is particularly easy for the ethnically and culturally Chinese to fall into the trap of Sinocentrism, especially with the Chinese civilization state coming out of its century of humiliation and claiming back its position in the world it has enjoyed for millennia in the past. Remember, being proud of your culture because of its longevity, depth, and achievement is no different from a person being proud of his birth into a family of wealth and privilege. The best way to honor your heritage is not by looking down on others, but to enrich your every action with lessons from the past. If there's anything a rich heritage should have taught anyone paying attention, is that the glory of one's civilization is a combination of many factors, not all of which are within the control of men. Today I will have a chat with you on some of these factors. One of the most persistent but perhaps harmless propaganda in circulation among Malaysians is that we live in a blessed land of plenty. While we might be blessed with a general lack of natural disaster, but if you're playing Civilization 6 and your starting location is the Malay Peninsula or Borneo, you are pretty much screwed. To build a civilization with complex society, you first need productive arable land. Maritime Southeast Asia is devoid of large, fertile floodplain capable of supporting large population, with perhaps the only exception being Java due to the peculiarity of its soil, which shows in its pre-modern population density, especially if you compare to its neighbouring territories like Borneo, Sumatra, or the Malay Peninsula. On top of the scarcity of productive arable land, the weather of the equator also means that the extreme competition for sunlight and the lack of seasons results in plants devoting more energy in growth than in storage. The result of this is that calorie produced per acre of equator-acclimated plants is significantly lower than temperate cultivars. The fact that Cameron Highland produces some 60% of vegetable food crops here tells you the impact of climate on agriculture. This is why large-scale civilization is rare on equatorial belts, and those that exist tend not to be able to sustain a large population over a long period of time. In fact, to build a large-scale civilization with climate like ours, a civilization would need two crucial technologies, refrigeration and antibiotics, both of which came about only after industrialization. Not to mention the difficulty in storing calories in our weather means raising an army for military campaigns is practically impossible. Those of us that experience temperate environment would remember leaving unfinished food covered on the countertop as the kitchen drops to the temperature of the fridge overnight, facilitating longer storage of harvested calories. The story of China mirrors the geographical and climatic influence on civilization building. The Yellow River is also known as China's sorrow because it is both a blessing in its fertility but also a curse in its destructive flooding. Any society living around a fertile alluvial floodplain with the right climate will eventually discover advanced agricultural technologies, leading to population growth and complex civilization. As such, the Chinese was thus destined to achieve large population societies for their geographical starting location. However, the cultural edge that sets the Chinese apart, and is a lesson I believe the Chinese have carried well into the modern day, is that our ancestors did not rely on the gods or the spirits or the heavens to deal with the perils of living beside the Yellow River, but rather take matters into their own hands to tame the Yellow River. The heavens will do what it does. The fate of man is in our own hands. It is exactly this boon of having a fertile river valley homeland, creating an overwhelmingly large population, and the bane of the same river that forces the Chinese to develop sophisticated hydro-engineering technology, which is so crucial that it writes the next chapter of the Chinese story, its expansion into the Yangtze in the late Neolithic and early Bronze Age. You see, the Yangtze has a milder, wetter, more comfortable climate than the Yellow River Valley. Yet societies living around the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze during the early Bronze Age never achieved the complexity and numbers that the Chinese did along the Yellow River. While some argued that this comfortable climate results in complacent societies, modern research indicates, however, that the reason might have more to do with geography, because the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze was originally surrounded by swamps and wetlands which prohibited intensive agriculture. While these wetlands and swamps of the Yangtze promoted the development of wet rice cultivation technology amongst the ancestors of the Hmong and Austronesian-speaking groups, both of which were most likely the progenitors of wet rice cultivation. But the lack of hydro-engineering technology among these speakers, coupled with a wetter, milder climate with richer biodiversity in wild game, means that they were never able to intensively cultivate the Yangtze, and also having no need to do so, with calories abundant everywhere. And when the more populous Chinese expanded south into the Yangtze, armed with hydro-engineering technology from dealing with the Yellow River and adapting to rice cultivation instead of their ancestral millet, these combinations resulted in an explosive development in the Sinitic culture, overwhelming the non-Sinitic cultures in southern China, in numbers, in complexity, and militaristic organization, culminated in the complete Sinicization of the South. I've covered this in more details in about 3 videos earlier. But it is also perhaps living in the wetlands and swamps of the lower reaches of the Yangtze that allowed these ancestral Austronesian speakers to develop an affinity for ocean navigation, allowing them to quickly colonize islands and archipelagos, habitat left unexploited, becoming the first deep-sea navigators, spreading as far west as Madagascar and as far east as Hawaii, at least 1,000 years before other societies would even dare venture into the high seas. We are very much the product of our environment, and the achievements of the Chinese is as much a product of the fortune or misfortune of geography and climate as it is the efforts of our ancestors in overcoming adversities. Not to forget the luck of being isolated just enough to not have cultural peers in close proximity like in the Near East, while not being too isolated from the world at large like in the case of the Mesoamerican cultures. If anything our ancestors taught us is that history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And the true blessing that our ancestors left us is a treasure trove of cultural experiences to guide us so we do not have to walk blindly into the future.